how to make video and speak human words. I do not know. No one told me. Sorry, unfortunate. I was planning on filming something else tonight, but then earlier today, Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction posted her TBR for the bookoplathon, and I didn't know what that was, so I watched the video, and it turns out it's a really cool Monopoly-inspired readathon, and so I was like, I have to participate. So instead of the cover that I was going to record tonight, I'm recording my TBR for the bookoplathon instead. So I ended up rolling 5 times, but I rolled a bunch of bonus rolls because I got doubles. So I actually have 9 books on this TBR that are normal prompts, and then a 10th book that I just threw in because I also have to read it next month. And the first book that I rolled for was the prompt of translated fiction, and I ended up picking No Exit for this prompt because it was originally made in French, because the writer is French. I'm sure you all know that, because this is probably a book a bunch of people had to read in school. I picked this because it's my favorite play of like all time. I had to read it in junior year for my world literature class, and I think we were focusing on like learning about like existentialism and absurdism at the time. So we read this play and I just fell in love with it. It's kind of like dark humor in a way, I guess that's how I would explain it, with like philosophy in it. Yeah, because existentialism is philosophy. So I really like it, and so I'm gonna reread it. And then the second roll that I did was poll pick, and for this you're supposed to put up a poll on like Instagram or Twitter or something, and then your like followers will pick from them and the books that you put up, and then you'll have to read that book. So I put up a list of 4 books on my Instagram stories, and the book that people picked was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, and I did read the first like 2-ish chapters of it earlier, like a few days ago, and I really enjoyed what I read of it, but I've stopped since then because I don't want to read more of it before September happens, now that it's on my TBR. And it's basically dark academia, but with actors. And after I read the first 2 chapters, oh, it's it's pretentious and dark academia, but like, as an actor and theater major myself, I was just like, if the whole book is like this, where it's just actors talking about acting and theater, I think this is going to be like a favorite book, because I love mysteries, and it's going to become a mystery because it's not a spoiler. Someone gets murdered, of like this group of like college actors at this pretentious liberal arts school. So hopefully it actually is good. I think it's good. I think most people say that they like it. But yeah, dark academia with actors is definitely my personal favorite dark academia. And also, I like mysteries. So any book with a mystery in it is probably going to be super exciting for me. So the next prompt that I landed on was a book with fire on the cover. And so I'm going to read With the Fire on High for this. I'm actually like 70 pages in, but like I'm 70 pages in from like last year, and I haven't read the rest of it since then. So yeah, I picked it up like on a whim when I was like in Target one time, because I was like, oh, everyone talks about this book being so pretty and like being well written and stuff, and people really enjoy this book, so I was like, I'll just buy it. So hopefully I end up liking it, but it's good so far. I'm just not super into contemporary YA, like, at all. I, like, hardly ever read it, but of what I read of it, I really like, because, oh my goodness. What I've read of it so far I really like, because I enjoy how Elizabeth Acevedo writes, because she's a spoken word poet, so, like, her writing style is kind of, like, poetic, and also, like, the chapters are oftentimes like pretty short, but they read well that way. Like pretty short as in like 2 pages sometimes, or 3 pages. And so I'm wondering if that holds up throughout the rest of the book, but I'll just have to find out. And also it talks about food a lot, and there's recipes in here, so like, if nothing else, I'm gonna have a bunch of recipes I can try out at some point. So yeah, hopefully I enjoy the rest of this book, but I liked what I read of it so far. The next prompt was a chance space, and for the chance cards I put down a bunch of books that I was kind of interested in reading, and I ended up rolling to read Betsy in Spite of Herself, which I tried to read for the Make Your Myth Taker readathon, but I ended up not getting around to. But this time I actually will read it, and I'm not going to repeat the stuff that I said last time, so I'm not going to talk about this book really all that long, but basically it's just Betsy in her sophomore year of high school trying to be real dramatic and mysterious, and apparently I thought it was a good book last time I read it, but I don't know if I trust past me or not. The next prompt that I rolled for was the lowest rated book on my TBR, and I kind of just like went on to Goodreads and like kept scrolling until I found the lowest rated book that I actually like had access to. And that book ended up being My Squirrel Days by Ellie Kemper. And people were saying they didn't like it as much because it was just kind of boring and also didn't talk enough about like her time in The Office and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is kind of disappointing because I love her in both of those shows. But I'm hoping that I find it funny and interesting anyway. And it's pretty short. I think it's less than 300 pages. Yeah, so if I don't end up liking it, it's not that long of a read. I'll read it in like one day. So I'm hoping that I don't rate it as low as everyone else did. Although the average rating was 3.38 stars or something. So like, that's not horrible. But the reviews were kind of just saying it was boring. So let's hope that's not actually the case, in my opinion. The next thing that I rolled was actually a prompt that I couldn't fulfill because I didn't have any books that fulfilled it. So instead what I had to do was roll again, but then pick 2 books for the next prompt I landed on, and the next prompt I landed on was YA. And so I ended up picking The Dreamer, Volume 1 by Laura Innes. I had this on my Make Your Myth Taker readathon TBR video, so I don't have any new things to say about it, except this time I'm actually going to bother reading it, and also I picked it because it's really short compared to all the other books that I have on my list other than No Exit. So definitely this will be helpful when I'm really just like struggling to get books finished. I can just pick this up and read it and then have one more book done on my TBR. So I don't own enough short books that fit with these prompts. Otherwise I would have more short books. Maybe if I tried harder, I could have gotten stuff done. But I think I put some of these books on here because I've been planning on reading them, and I was like, you just have to read them. It's just unfortunate that I have 10 books that I have to read in a month instead of, like, during the rest of the year. Like, I was planning on finishing a bunch of books over the rest of the year, and now I have to read a bunch of them in 4 weeks. So, is that the smartest plan I've ever made? No. Is it the worst plan I've ever made? Maybe. And then the second YA that I have to read is a book called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is apparently a trilogy according to Goodreads, which I don't know how I feel about that, because it's a mystery story. Why is it a trilogy? I don't see it. That just seems like something you stretched out because the publishing house wanted it to be a trilogy. It doesn't seem like the kind of story that would end up being 3 whole books and still be super engaging. Although no, there's the mystery series that everyone talks about. But some people said it also shouldn't have been 3 books. I don't know. So I'm reading it though because I'm reading it for research for a writing project that I'm working on, because I'm trying to write a screenplay for a small town, a murder mystery, teen girl detective. So I was like, I heard that this book has all those things, so I was like, I should probably read it because there's not that much of that out there except for like Nancy Drew, and she doesn't count. So this also has a cold case. Not a cold case, a closed case that was closed like 5 years ago. But then this teen girl detective is like, no, 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 no. I don't believe that the person that they put in jail for the murder is actually the murderer. So she does this, like, senior year project on trying to find out who actually did the murder. And then since it's a small town, everyone's like, stop that. So hopefully it's good. But also I think it's pretty short. I forget how many, I wrote down how many pages it has. It is, no, actually it's not pretty short. I take that back. It's one of the longest books on my list, but I'm reading the audiobook, so I can just turn it on to like 2 times speed and get it done pretty quickly. So hopefully I like it, but I'm sure at the very least I'll get some ideas for my own story from reading this, even if it's just, I don't want to do what they did, I want to do something else. But hopefully it's good. The next thing I rolled to was Community Shelf, and for that you were supposed to make up like your own prompts that you didn't see, and so for that I just wrote down the names of like all my siblings and like family members, and then I was just gonna like ask whichever person I landed on, like when I rolled the dice, because I numbered them. This is such a convoluted way of explaining it. I numbered all of their names from like 1 to 6, and then I rolled a dice, and then I landed on one of the people. So I ended up landing on Jade, and she ended up recommending that I read Vicious because she read it recently and she enjoyed it. So I'm reading Vicious, and it, from what I know about it, it's 2 college roommates ended up giving themselves superpowers, and now they're like arch enemies or something, and I'm hoping that this book can give me everything that the Renegade series didn't, because I just finished that series and it kind of flopped on the arch enemies front. So hopefully this series is actually like good with that, which it should be, because the whole premise of that was with Renegades anyway. Ooh, I don't know. The last thing I rolled on was read the first book in a series, and for this I'm kind of like bending the rules, but that's because I have to read this book like at the very beginning of the month, and that is Lord Brocktree, which is the first in the Redwall series chronologically, like timeline-wise in the world. And the reason I'm reading this is because one of my other siblings is hosting, like part of hosting this like read-through of all of the Redwall books in chronological order, and so I told her that I would read all the books and like give my feedback on like my thoughts on them on the forums. So that's why I'm reading this, and then right after that I have to read Martin the Warrior, which is a book that did not end up fitting any of the prompts, but I still have to read in September, so that's the bonus 10th book. And yeah, I don't really care about the Redwall series. Like, I read some of it as like a kid because all my other siblings read it as a kid as well, but like I haven't been like super into it, and I didn't really read most of the books. But I'm sure I'll find it kind of interesting, and I'm sure I'll have thoughts that are original and new, because I don't normally read books like these anymore, because I'm not really into fantasy. I don't know if I ever was, but like I'm definitely not into just normal fantasy or anthropomorphic animals anymore. So hopefully I can just get these done, but they're kind of long, so I'm probably just going to have to get them done like immediately, and then get to all the other books that I want to read, but just read these for like the first 4 days of the month, and then read the rest of the books for the other 26 days of the month. I can't do math or remember how many days are in September. So yeah, that's all of the books that I'm going to be reading in September, unless I change my TBR, which I might do, but I also don't see myself having other books that fall in the categories. Let me actually see. I couldn't do something else for translated fiction. Poll pick, I'm not going to do something else. I can't do something else for Fire on the Cover unless I really tried hard to like mess with that chance. I can't change that one. Lowest rated, I don't think I could change that one unless I like cheated a bunch with it. 2 YAs. I could change the 2 YAs, but I don't think no, actually no, I could. I take that back. I could change the 2 YAs if I wanted to. So those are 2 that might change. And I can't change the Community Shelf, and I'm not going to change the Redwall books for first in the series. So yeah, I might end up reading 2 different YA books, but other than that, this is my cold and fast TBR for the bookoplathon. So I hope you enjoyed watching this absolute mess of a video. I semi-enjoyed filming it. And I will see you next week, hopefully with the cover that I intended on filming tonight. So, yeah, I'm not gonna film a wrap-up for any of these books, like I said in my one and only wrap-up that I filmed last week. Not filmed last week, posted last week. I filmed it like a month ago. I just ended up taking forever to edit it. So, hopefully you enjoy me talking about books that you're never going to hear me talk about again, unless I love them, because if I love any of these books, I'll talk about them in my favorites of 2020 video. So if you really want to find out what I think of some of these books, you should stick around for at least the next, like, 5 months or whatever, and then you'll get to watch my favorites of 2020 video, and then I'll actually talk about these books like a normal person. So, see you soon, hopefully. Bye.